Necromunda sits in a weird place in the Games Workshop product line. Nominally it's a 40k skirmish game, but you don't play with the 40k factions like Space Marines or Eldar. Instead, everything is set on the hive world of Necromunda, and the factions you get to pick from are all low-level gangs fighting turf wars. Things are recognisably 40k, but over the years Necromunda really has become its own thing with a deep lore and a fascinating setting. Gameplay has those alternating activations we love. The basic stat line is the same as the original Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader from 1987. For an activation, each model gets 2 actions. Actions are divided into 3 types. Simple actions like move, which can be taken multiple times, basic actions like shoot, which can be taken once per turn, and double actions like charge, which requires both actions to perform. The combat system is what I see as the classic GW system of hit, wound, save. Attacks are resolved by rolling a d6 to hit, with the target number based on the attacker's skill and relevant modifiers like range and cover. Necromunda adds a little twist by having you roll an ammo die, and if the ammo icon comes up, you have to make an ammo test, or the weapon needs to be reloaded. If the attack hits, the attacker makes a wound roll based on the attack's strength and the defender's toughness. If that succeeds, the defender gets one last chance to make an armor save roll. Most weapons do 1 damage and most gangers only have 1 wound, with leaders and champions typically having 2. If the ganger goes to 0 wounds, they have to roll an injury die, which could result in a flesh wound, serious injury, or them being taken out of action completely. Even if they do survive, gangers will go prone if they're hit with shooting. These aren't trained soldiers after all. Those are the basics. There's a lot more options and special rules, but it's all actually pretty familiar. The core of a gang comes from the main gang box of 10 models, which has a ton of options. Campaigns typically start at 1,000 credits, while one-off games sit somewhere between 1,250 and 2,000. That cash will be used to recruit gang members and pay for the weapons and equipment. Your leader and champions will be tricked out with the fancier gear, but most of your gang will be armed with basic weapons like lasguns and autoguns to round out the numbers. A gang must have 1 leader. They'll have access to all the best gear. Next are the champions. Technically, these don't have a limit, but starting gangs usually take 2. The leader and champions will get to pick a primary skill, which gives them a little bit of an edge. You must have at least 50% of your gang as gangers, prospects, or juves. In practice, you'll take 1 leader, 2 champions. You might maybe have 1 juve to round out numbers, and then all the rest are gangers. One of those gangers will be a specialist with a fancier weapon. This gang here now is perfectly at 1,000 points. As the campaign goes on though, you'll get more money, you get to spend it on equipment and gear, and maybe you're recruiting some more, so I've got another 3 models that can be recruited here later. The initial box of 10 for a gang is perfect. When assembling your first gang, my recommendation will be to go with the box art. I always have a sense of dread when I want to assemble models with so many options like this. If you want, you can head to Goonhammer and read through the article for ways to optimize it, but don't worry too much about it. The box art gangs are fine, and if you decide to go deeper into the game, you'll get that box again, maybe several times. At this point, it's probably a good time to talk about tactics cards. These are cool single-use effects that you get to spring on your opponent. The number of tactic cards you get in the game are detailed in the scenario, sometimes like choose X cards or randomly draw X cards from the deck. Now, there are a few problems with this. First, there are no rules on how a deck is made, and second, hundreds of cards have been printed, and most of them are out of print. Goonhammer suggests keeping the deck size to 12. Have a read through that article and see what you think. In the end, there are 3 options. Ignore cards completely, pick them up when the packs are in stock, or look at proxying a set, maybe assigning each value from a suit of playing cards to a tactic, and then drawing from that deck. Speaking of which, when making gangs, make sure you read up on Goonhammer, which is one of the best sources of info on Necromunda. Then head over to Yaktribe. They also have some great forums with good info, but more importantly, the Underhive Tools is a fantastic list builder, which will also generate a PDF of cards for your gangers, making it really easy to reference in-game. As with most GW games, getting a starter box is always the best start. You'll want the stuff like special dice, tokens, and templates. The boxes also had significant savings on getting the gangs and scenery individually. As I look at the GW store, there are 2 starter boxes for Necromunda, Hive War and Ash Wastes. Hive War is currently marketed as temporarily out of stock online, but I fully expect it to come back into stock soon enough. This means that there are 2 ways to start into the game. The main difference is the style of terrain. Honestly, you could treat these as 2 separate games. Hive War uses the Zone Mortalis scenery with lots of walls and corridors. It portrays the close confines within the Underhive. Personally, I found the Hive War scenery a little bit too sparse, and I immediately picked up the floor tile set and columns and wall set to round it out. The scenery is highly modular, and it can really become an obsession for some players. Ash Wastes instead is all about those areas outside the hive. It has a big open mat with buildings on platforms. This gives plenty of room to zoom around in vehicles Mad Max style. Ash Waste is almost twice the price of Hive War, but you get vehicles as extra, the scenery is arguably more complete, and the rulebook is a full rulebook rather than a partial rulebook of Hive War. Okay, next steps. Games Workshop has some extra rules up on the website. So the FAQ has all the clarifications and updates you'll expect, but it also has the basic campaign rules. It doesn't have the stuff around what you're fighting for, like the Dominion Zones or the Law and Order Rackets, but it has all the steps to put your gang together and get XP and level up. It also has the rules for vehicle repair, just in case you pick up a book of the Outlands but not the Ash Wastes. The next one is a trading post. This has a full list of all of the weapons and equipment in the game, and the costs during a campaign. This has all of the crazy stuff outside your normal faction, and it's a great opportunity for custom models. You're still missing scenarios and resources to fight over, but it's a solid start. OpenHiveWar.com is an online random scenario generator for Necromunda. With that, you have everything you need to run a campaign. There is a lot of Necromunda, so take it one bite at a time. You can have a hell of a lot of fun with basic gangers with autoguns fighting it out without having to worry about all of the rest. Play through the campaigns in a box before you decide to expand. Look for other content online, like the free scenarios posted on Warhammer Community, or the player compilation, the Necrodamus. The Hive War book isn't a complete set of rules, but it does have a basic list for each of the main gangs. Enough that you can pick up another gang box and play. For full campaign play, you're missing the full list of skills, cycle rules, and a campaign. Picking up the core rulebook feels like a step back, but it has all the rules you're missing, the Dominion campaign, and tips for running campaigns. With this, you'll have everything you need to get a campaign set in the Underhive. The Ash Waste book is much better and has a complete set of rules, but doesn't have any detail of gangs. The 2 gangs included in the box have their rules in a model assembly booklet. That's fine though, as soon enough you'll be picking up a faction book. It has a campaign, but it's an Ash Waste campaign, so you're outside the Hive. That said, there's really nothing stopping you from using the other terrain. It does have vehicle rules, and more importantly the vehicle dice and tokens. But for the full set of rules, you will need to get the Book of the Outlands. Since we're doubling down on vehicles, this does seem to be the next best option. Okay, well hopefully at this stage you should have had some fun with the games from the core box and you want to expand out. Maybe you've got a buddy who's doing the same, or maybe you're looking to expand out 2 gangs. In this case, we're going to focus on the Orlok gang. Every gang starts with the core gang box. The gang boxes have 2 sprues of 5 models each. Torso and legs are static with variations across the arms and heads. At the end, you'll be left with a lot of spare heads and weapon options. Your first upgrade is likely to be the faction book and the extra faction box. The new models will include a combination of specialists and juves and tend to be quite flavorful. The book will give you the rules you need to run them. Each of the core 6 gangs have a book. These books are packed with lore, rules for extra models, hangers-on, brutes, hired guns, alliances, and special scenarios for the factions. As a bonus, the House of Chains also includes rules for the Ogrin gangs. If you're playing a faction outside the core 6, then there is still a book for you. These extra books tend to be more focused on a certain style of campaign. The Enforcers appear in the Book of Judgment. The Book of Rune adds Corpse Grinder cults, Gene Stealer cults, and Chaos cults. Book of Peril adds Bounty Hunter gangs. Book of the Outland adds Ash Waste Nomads and Ironhead Squat Prospectors. And the Book of the Outcast adds Outcast gangs. The next step is usually the first step all over again. Back to the gang box, but picking up the weapons and upgrade kits to give them a little bit more punch. This has lots of extra weapons and head options, so you can get more variety into those 5 models on each sprue. Some of the big guys you can get in the extra boxes are called brutes. These are 2 that any faction can use. The Ambots, which are big digging robots, and the Ogrin, with automatic fists and welding gear. They're really just a bit of fun. Now, if you are going down the Ash Waste routes, then vehicles are where it's at. GW is rolling out the gang vehicles at a decent rate, but in the meantime the Gene Stealer cult have what you need. The Atalant pack has a quad and a bunch of bikes, so go back to that gang box and replace the torsos to get yourself some cool looking gangers. The Ridge Runner and the Rock Grinder can be built without any need for gangers on top, so you could batten down the hatches and have them completely neutral if you want, so any of your gangs could use it. As a bonus, all of these Gene Stealer kits have extra arms and weapons that work well for customizing your other gangers. You immediately get 400 points to spend on vehicles in the Ash Waste campaign. Dirt Bike costs 50, Ridge Runner 95, and Rock Grinder 145. Then you add in all of the weapons and upgrades to really max them out. If you've got this far, you've essentially got everything you can get from Games Workshop. It's now time to go look at the scary place called Forge World. They have all the extra gang options and a ton of hangers-on and hired guns. Beautiful but expensive. And we'll leave it there for now. There is a big piece left on campaigns, but we can look at that on another day. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and comment.